Hello and welcome back to Hestia's Muse, podcast for astrological devotionals. My name is Lilliana Blackstar, and I am here to bring you a spiritual devotional of self-discovery and personal growth that is in some way inspired by astrology. Join me to tune into astrological transits and the Wheel of the Year for inspiration in your greatest task in life, to know yourself. Hi friends, welcome back. It's Lilliana Blackstar here from Hestia's Muse, and I'm so glad you have tuned in for this podcast episode. Today we are just going to get ready for Aquarius season and spend some time talking about the archetype of Aquarius and the energy of Aquarius so we can get ready for Aquarius season. So, the sun will be entering Aquarius on January 20th at 6:08 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's about 9:08 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Aquarius is the fixed air sign. It's the 11th season of the astrological year. If we consider an astrological year to begin with Aries, then Aquarius is the 11th month of that astrological year. In the Northern Hemisphere, Aquarius season marks the middle of winter. So the astrological seasons are not related as much to weather as they are related to the sun's journey along the ecliptic and the tilt of the earth, causing the solstice and equinox points. So astrological winter is the season of Capricorn, which begins with the winter solstice, and then the season of Aquarius is the middle of winter, and the season of Pisces is the end of winter. The middle of Aquarius season, when the sun is at 15 degrees Aquarius, this is considered to be the middle of winter. It is 6 weeks after the winter solstice and 6 weeks before the spring equinox. And this is when we generally celebrate what is called Imbolc by modern pagans. Imbolc is the celebration of early spring, in the sense that it's still winter time, but we can start planning for spring to return, and that's usually celebrated on February 1st. For astrological purposes this year, the sun will be at 15 degrees Aquarius on February 4th. So that is the 6 weeks until the spring equinox. So Aquarius energy relates to the awakening of the mind as we dream of spring. So it's that wishful thinking, that looking ahead, hopefully. It's still winter time, but we know that something better is coming. We know that spring is there, and so we can start to imagine and dream about the world that we want to create, right? So Aquarius is that creativity that fuels our hopefulness for the future and our dreams of a better world. Where Capricorn energy was about looking to the past and looking to elders for wisdom from the past and a search for stability, Aquarius looks to the future, and sometimes it looks to change things or shake things up. So some of our dreams or hopefulness for the future are an idealistic, bright future that requires breaking free from the status quo and doing things differently. So while Capricorn season was about the ways that we need to maybe have structure and rules and do things the same as we've done them before, Aquarius energy is about looking at where we need to be more inventive or rebellious and idealistic and hopeful and do things differently for the future. So when we look at Aquarius energy, we can break it down into its smaller parts to try to understand it better. So Aquarius is, first of all, an air sign. It is an air sign. The air signs are intellectual. They are objective, innovative, adaptive. They're thoughtful. They're social. They're curious. So these are all great keywords for those air signs. And then it is a fixed sign. So the other air signs are not fixed. This is where Aquarius is different from Gemini or from Libra, because Libra is cardinal air and Gemini is mutable air, whereas Aquarius is fixed air. So the fixed signs are very determined, resilient, stubborn, persistent, resourceful, and strong-willed. When we talk about the astrological seasons, the fixed signs happen in the middle of a season. So it is the middle of winter. The weather generally is very wintry, right? In the beginning of winter, we might still have some weather that's kind of like fall. And at the end of winter, we start to have some weather that's like spring. So the cardinal and the mutable energies are a little different, whereas the fixed sign in the middle of a season is solidly doing the job of that season. So the fixed signs, that's where they get the energy of like resilience and stubbornness, persistence, and being strong-willed, but also very resourceful and determined. So those are new energies that we combine to that intellectual, innovative air sign energy, right? And Aquarius in traditional astrology is ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is the nature of authority, structure, limitation, time, responsibility, and boundaries. So we have to bring these into account when we interpret what Aquarius energy is about also. I'm going to get more into Saturn later. But for now, let's just focus on what Aquarius energy is with that fixed air energy. So it's a very distinctive energy, and it teaches us these really essential lessons of innovation and the pursuit of freedom. This astrological archetype of Aquarius combines the persistence inherent in the fixed signs with the intellectual prowess associated with air signs. So the enduring determination of Aquarius is highlighted, and it brings the fixed qualities strong-willed nature. Again, you can already kind of start to see how this is a Saturn-ruled sign, just from some of those keywords there. So the archetype of Aquarius symbolizes the intellectual exploration, and it thrives on innovative ideas and sharp thinking. So the air element encourages social and communicative tendencies, tempered by a certain level of emotional detachment that allows for objective analysis. So as Aquarius is governed by Saturn, it emphasizes long-term goals and long-term pursuits, or a commitment to positive change in the long term. So the transit of Aquarius invites us to blend intellectual pursuits with this enduring determination. It encourages mixing together innovation with stability. So there's a focus on establishing secure foundations. However, it has an emphasis on creating like lasting progress. The secure foundations are there to give a strong foundation for progress and growth and change to occur. So during the season of Sun in Aquarius, the focus is on developing curiosity and innovative thinking. This time of year generally encourages self-reflection, urging us to examine our goals and aspirations with an open mind. The combination of the fixed quality and the air element prompts us to preserve and persevere with determination while exploring new perspectives and new ideas and being innovative. So Aquarius is the opposite sign of Leo, and Leo focuses on individual self-expression, whereas Aquarius explores group dynamics and community needs. So it shifts away from the desire to create something for a sense of individual self-expression, and then which would be the Leo side of things, and the Aquarius side is very creative and wants to create new things, but the general intention behind that creation and that invention energy is less about personal self-expression and more about community needs. So it's about, what could help my community right now? What do people need in the world to make the world better? And then inventing something or creating some art that helps express group dynamics and the way that a community is feeling about something instead of just the way an individual is feeling about something. So the Sun in Aquarius encourages this energy of social consciousness and pushes us to connect with the broader community and contribute to collective progress. It challenges us to balance our individuality with a commitment to creating positive change on a larger scale. So with some self-awareness and intellectual exploration and a willingness to embrace the new or unconventional, the lessons of Aquarius guide us towards personal growth, but also a deeper understanding of our personal role within the broader tapestry of humanity. So we start to understand that I am not just an individual, but I am a part of the whole. I am an individual within a collective. So Aquarius is often associated with invention, and this is because as we think of the future and we dream of ways to improve our lives for ourselves or for our communities, we tend to think of new ways to meet those needs, and thus we invent new technologies. So for this reason, Aquarius can be associated with machines, computers, robots, AI, because these are all inventions that came from people looking to improve human life, even though the outcome is sometimes something that is very detached from humanity itself, right? Computers can sometimes make us feel disconnected from community and humanity. Sometimes something is invented that has a certain kind of intention, and then later in practical use, it's used for something completely different. Like, weapons of war and mass destruction might have had different intentions behind building them or creating them. When alchemists were first experimenting with gunpowder, they thought maybe they were making some kind of medicine. It ended up being something quite different, right? And not really having applications for healing, but it still changed the world. And so sometimes the invention itself is not applied in humanitarian ways, but the process of invention and the process of creating new things and inventing new technologies is related to the archetype of Aquarius. So even though the outcome is different, we invent things. We are inspired to change the future and to make a solution for a problem, or to make the world better in some way, make it more convenient, make it easier to do a thing. So we invent something. So while the Leo archetype might ask how one can improve themselves for the world, like how can I be better at being me and bless the world with my beautiful talents, the Aquarius archetype asks how the world can be improved for people. Like, how can I improve the world, make the world better so that it can serve me and my community in a better way? So Aquarius is also sometimes associated with like weirdness, or alien-like energy. So in simplest terms, the innovators who bring change are the ones who are willing to step outside of the status quo, and the ones that are willing to think outside the box and dare to be different. During the time when they are stepping outside of the status quo and thinking outside of the box, they might be seen as weirdos or alien-like, right? They're just strange because they're not fitting in. It's interesting to note, though, that sometimes a trend setter is at first seen as absurd, but then the trend itself takes hold and gains popularity. And the thing that was once seen as weird is eventually seen as normal or accepted as popular. And this also reminds me of Saturn, because Saturn is about those long-term goals and the passage of time, or things that persist through time. So sometimes the changes that Aquarius makes might seem weird and unconventional and even upsetting or not accepted during the time when that innovation is being made, but then it catches on and it takes hold and it becomes popular, and then it's eventually over time seen as normal or accepted, an accepted behavior or thing in society that, 50 years ago we would have thought that was really weird, but now we're fine with it. And this again also relates to kind of that opposition energy between Leo and Aquarius, because Leo is about what's trendy and what's popular, and Aquarius is about what's outside the box, so very not popular at the time, but it kind of becomes the trendsetter and decides what is popular in the future, because it is innovating, and not everything that Aquarius energy dreams up becomes popular, but the process of invention and the process of innovation is the Aquarian vibe, and some of that catches on through that Leo opposition and becomes popular and acceptable and normal. So along with trend setting, another trait of innovative people who are willing to be different is their tendency to be rebellious or even start revolutions. So sometimes that dream for a better life means stepping away from the way things are to try something new. And in some circumstances, this act of stepping outside of accepted norms is considered an act of rebellion. And sometimes, if that act of rebellion spreads, right, it becomes popular or trending to step outside of the norm of accepted societal rules and break free. That's usually because the community or culture as a whole, the collective, is ready for change. And that rebellion is necessary, that revolution is necessary at some points, because the communal whole is ready for change and needs to break free of something that's been holding it back or oppressive. So eventually a rebellion might be seen as a revolution, and depending on the outcome, it might be seen as a liberation that brought greater freedom, more peace, and more innovations that helped the whole culture thrive in new ways. Sometimes the revolution didn't really work out, and it's looked back on as, those crazy people who were doing something crazy and it didn't catch on, right? It didn't become a true revolution of liberation. It was just those crazy rebels over there. All right. So I know that's a lot, and this is speaking in broad terms about the archetypal energy of Aquarius. Not just the sun in Aquarius season, but anytime someone is doing these things, they are engaging with Aquarius energy in some way. They are bringing into life this Aquarius archetype, and anyone can do that, whether they have planets in Aquarius in their birth chart or not, whether we have planets in Aquarius in the present day or not. So this archetype of Aquarius can be brought through at many different times. However, it's going to be probably easier to access and easier to tune into that Aquarius archetype when we have more planets in the sign of Aquarius. And we're about to have Pluto enter the sign of Aquarius and be there for 20 years. It's going to be there through this year. It'll kind of retrograde back into Capricorn for a month or two during 2024 and then go back into Aquarius again. And then it's going to be there until 2044. So it's a long transit for Pluto to be there. And of course, there will be lots of other transits that happen during that time. But it's good to kind of look at this Aquarius energy and think about that when we are moving into this next 20-year cycle. So I want to talk a little bit more about Saturn as the ruler of Aquarius, because I know in modern astrology, a lot of times they want to talk about Uranus as the ruler of Aquarius, and I want to just put that on hold for a second and just look at the archetype of Saturn. So Saturn in astrology embodies the archetype of the taskmaster, and it represents discipline and structure and the pursuit of long-term goals. This planet's influence is the stern but wise teacher, imparting valuable life lessons through challenges and making us think about our responsibilities and when we need to be mature. Saturn teaches the importance of hard work, patience, and perseverance, urging individuals to build a solid foundation to pursue their ambitions. Saturn rules over time and the maturation process, emphasizing the significance of delayed gratification and the rewards that come with sustained effort. So while Saturn's influence may bring tests and limitations, Saturn ultimately guides personal and societal growth, encouraging a grounded and realistic approach to life. Lessons associated with Saturn include facing your fears, embracing responsibilities, understanding the value of enduring hardships for the sake of personal development, long-term success, maturity, responsibility, etc. All of those can definitely be applied to what we talked about with the Aquarius energy. But I know that this can be difficult because we are not taught to think about Aquarius in terms of its Saturnian traits. in a lot of today's modern astrology texts and websites and such, because they're using the modern rulership of Uranus. So Saturn is also the ruler of Capricorn, and with Capricorn energy, this is very obvious. It's about creating stability and learning from the past. The Saturn of earthy and receptive Capricorn brings us lessons of hard work and patience, and knowing when to follow the rules or listen to the guidance of our elders and listen to people in authority. All of the planets have a duality though, because in traditional astrology, all the planets ruled over 2 different signs. And so there's this one side of Saturn that is this earthy, receptive Capricorn energy type of lesson, and the other side of Saturn is this airy, projective, Aquarian energy. And that side of Saturn brings us lessons of knowing when things need to change and knowing when a boundary is unfair or isn't helpful and therefore it needs to be broken. Because when Saturn teaches us about boundaries, it's not just teaching us about when to say like, oh, there's a boundary there, I guess I can't go there. But it's also showing us there's a boundary there, but that boundary doesn't make sense, it's unfair, and I'm going to find a way around it, right? So sometimes the lesson is about holding a boundary or respecting a boundary, and sometimes the lesson is about breaking a boundary. The limitations of Saturn are tests. Sometimes we need to hold the boundary and follow the rules, and other times we need to break free of the boundary and liberate ourselves, setting new boundaries and taking responsibility for our fate in new ways. We do not always have to accept things the way that they are. That's not what Saturn is here to teach us. And the air energy, projective energy side of Saturn through Aquarius helps us understand this side of Saturn's lessons. It helps us understand and know when we need to push for something new and have the determination and perseverance to push through the resistance to bring about lasting change. So just a side note on rulership. Most people, like I mentioned before, in modern times, think of Saturn in the more strict earthy way that is associated with the Capricorn ruler. And they tend to forget to include the Aquarian-like lessons of Saturn that are about resistance and breaking free from the status quo. So we have to remember that Saturn is both. It has a receptive, earthy nature, and it has a projective, airy nature. The planets have duality. Saturn has a Capricorn agenda, but it also has an Aquarian agenda. And part of the lessons of Saturn are in finding the balance between those two sides. And I think part of why we have collectively sort of forgotten about the Aquarian side of Saturn is because modern astrology reassigned rulership of Aquarius to Uranus. While Uranus certainly has many Aquarius-like traits and lessons, I think it was a disservice to Saturn to remove its rulership. Uranus can have a place of honor in Aquarius, 100%. But Saturn should not be stripped of rulership to give Uranus that place of honor. Saturn should still be seen, in my opinion, to rule both Capricorn and Aquarius. Because if we forget that Saturn is a ruler of Aquarius, we forget half of Saturn's nature, and we forget to teach ourselves half of Saturn's nature. And therefore, we end up ignoring or not paying attention to half of Saturn's teachings. Because most of the time, if you ask someone, what does Saturn mean to you? They will say, rules, restriction, boundaries. Okay, and you ask them for a little bit more, and what they end up describing is very much that earthy, receptive Capricorn type lesson. And when you tell them that Saturn is also about liberating yourself from boundaries or restrictions, it's about setting your own boundaries instead of having to listen to the boundaries set by others. And it's about knowing when to challenge the boundaries versus when to follow the boundaries. They're very surprised because they have not heard of this side of Saturn before. And I think that that is a disservice. So I personally believe that we need to remember the traditional rulership of the planets so that we can see the duality of the planets, so we can see the duality of Saturn. Uranus is a whole other conversation to have, and also is a very important planet to learn about, and definitely has very Aquarian-like traits. And as I said, it should have some kind of place of honor in Aquarius, perhaps consider it exalted in Aquarius. But I do not think that we should take away the rulership of Saturn to give it to Uranus, because like I said, then we tend to forget half of Saturn's nature. So during the month of Aquarius, when the sun is in Aquarius, Saturn will also just be important, because when the sun is going through a sign, we want to look at that sign's natural ruler, because it's kind of being given a voice at that time. So it's like Saturn, the sun is the boss, and it's saying, let's listen to see what Saturn has to say right now, because I'm in Saturn's kingdom. So the sun is moving through Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn, and so the sun says, what is Saturn doing right now? And Saturn is in Pisces. And I'm not going to get too much into what Saturn is teaching us in Pisces. That's perhaps another episode. But during the month of both Capricorn season and Aquarius season, the lessons of Saturn in Pisces, I think, are coming through in very distinct ways. And it's just something to pay attention to. So I hope you have enjoyed this little talk about Aquarius energy, and that helps prepare you for kind of what to look for, what energies to interact with, and kind of helping you maybe set your own intentions or set your awareness to be able to notice these Aquarian things happening in the world around you. So thank you for tuning in, and let me know if you enjoy this type of content too, because I've been doing the tarot card discussions, but I also can just come in and talk about signs and archetypes and stuff like that from my perspective. And if you like it, we can talk about it more. All right. Hope you'll have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.